Well, pruning is vital for gardens, and a lot of people don't know how to do it, so Shirley Bovshow is going to show us how.
If there's one person who knows how to do it, it is Shirley. What is the purpose of doing this during the summer?
Well, this is called summer pruning, and some of you may remember that in the spring we put in some peach trees and we cut these down too. I have a picture here to show why we're cutting in the summer. We want to preserve our trees at this height. You see all of those blooms so that it never becomes a tall 12-foot tree. It always is about 4 feet, and you can gather all the fruit from the bottom. Anyway, let me show you what happened. This here is a bunch of summer growth. And when you're doing summer pruning, it's time to cut it. And some of the most important things you need, it's real simple. Sharp pruners. And a lot of people don't think about this, but before you cut into your tree, you've got to sanitize your pruners.
Why?
Because they're like people.
Really?
They get diseases and bacterias. And before I move from this tree to the next and prune, I'm supposed to sanitize. So really important tip. So what I want to show you is where to prune and why.
Why don't we want to have a big tree, though? It doesn't give you that many peaches then, if you don't have a nice big tree.
That is an interesting thing to say, and a lot of people believe that. That's not necessarily true. You can have a compact 4-foot tree by 4 feet, like a shrub, with hundreds of peaches and nectarines.
And no ladder.
And no ladder, and then you can have a bunch of them at home.
Okay.
So here's what happens. When I pruned this in the spring, it was at this height. I put the little tag here so you could see it. I pruned all of this and I cut this. So all of this has grown since. I don't want this tree to be this high. I'm gonna stick to my guns. I want it to be this high. So in the summer, it's time to prune it to the size that you want. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I know you were scared the last time. So do not be afraid. Here's another thing. While I'm on the subject of pruning, here you see how flexible this is? Well, let me follow this down. Look at this, guys. It's not even connected to the trunk. This is what you call a sprout or a water sprout or a sucker. So this comes out.
The whole thing away?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. You see this knob?
Yes.
This is where a particular type of peach has been grafted onto another stock. So this is going to have champagne peaches. But any growth that comes from the bottom that's not connected to the trunk could be some random peach.
Well,
so we don't want it.
We can have 2 peaches.
Oh, God, you're just, she's nicer than I am. Okay, so I'm going to keep on cutting, but so that you understand why. Remember I said I'm going to cut all these the same size.
Right.
Just like this. And I'm going to show you some other little tricks. But you see this one, I'm going to cut this because this is dead. This is dead wood. So you also prune out at this time dead wood, and our whole strategy is that we want to create a vase shape. You see this? 1, 2, kind of like a vase. And we've got to open up the center so that the sun can come in and wipe, and just be very, very, fill everything up with the sunshine. So I'm going to cut this off too. This is the size I want it. That's where I'm cutting it. And you just cut
It seems
away.
counterproductive. Like I'm cutting back my tree so far. Is it?
It's going back to almost where you had the yellow thing.
Because that's the whole purpose of summer pruning and winter pruning. Every time you prune, you go and remind the tree, hey, you're supposed to say this short, and I'm not going to have it any other way. So that's what I do.
Did they ever talk back to you and say no?
No.
As a matter of fact, I did hear once. But I want to show you something also that's really important. You see this little nub here?
I see that. It looks like a growth.
Well, it's kind of like a rose. If I were to cut above this, you see how this would signal that the new growth would go in the direction.
Yeah.
I don't want it growing inside. I want it growing out.
picky.
Am I? That's right. So then I'm going to take this here, and then I'm going to find my nub right there, and I'm going to cut it this way so that it will grow in that direction. I want a vase.
I see.
So I'm going to keep cutting.
What's going to happen in winter? How much you have to do it again in the winter?
Absolutely.
And when will this tree start bearing fruit? After 3 seasons?
Well, actually, it started bearing fruit, but you don't want it.
But you cut it away.
I ate it. No, you don't want it. You want to wait for 4 or 5 years. You do this for the first 2 to 3 years to establish height and
I
to
see.
keep it this way.
I got a
Okay.
quick Facebook question
Yes.
to ask. This is from Lauren L, who, Ellie perhaps. My dwarf Fuji apple trees got really tall a couple of years ago. I
Right.
cut them hoping they would fill out. Should I prune it? If so, when? I live in Burbank,
Okay.
here in California.
Okay, we have her photo
Will
right
it
there.
affect? Will it affect the fruit for next year?
Well, actually, you have to prune it at the right time, and the way you know you're ready is your stems will have a terminal bud, and you'll see what it looks really interesting, just like a little bud. If 75% of your stems have that terminal bud, you can go ahead and prune into it in the summer. That means that that apple tree is not growing anymore. And all you need to do is right here in yellow, that's your main stem. I'm going to cut it off right where you see the red because you want to keep it short. You don't need all of that growth on top.